Thank you, Tom. So first things first, you have my deepest appreciation for being here early. I know it's tough to wake up in the morning. Well, kudos to you. So today I want to talk about something that we did at Pond recently, which is the Cryptonative Economy report. It's basically a dive into understanding a bit the entire scope of on-chain transactions and user demand that happens on the various blockchains and in between the dApps. My name is Josef J. I wear many hats, which I switch frequently. So first things first, I'm part of an establishment called Paralelní-Polis, which is a crypto-native hub in Prague. It's basically a space that's dedicated to educating around mixture of technologies and art and scientific topics, and it's also the headquarters of headquarters is not really the right word, but in Paralelní-Polis there is the world's oldest crypto-only operated coffee in the world, essentially since 2014. The cafe establishment only accepts cryptocurrency, so there is no way to pay in cash, there is no way to pay using cards, but the whole purpose of the concept is essentially to bring people into crypto through some tangible experience. So if they want to get a decent coffee, they either already need to be onboarded, or the staff will explain to them how things work, and they will make their first crypto transaction for actually buying coffee there. I was also part of the Ethereum Foundation for quite a bit. I was part of the DEF CON team. Opened up the hackerspace called Bordel in the basement of Paralelní-Polis, which now is basically put on hold until we all get back to Prague for ETH Prague finally. So I've also organized some community conferences such as ETH Prague or Ethereum Zurich with the production crew. And last but not least, it's actually the majority of my time now. I work at Pondao. So today I'm going to tell you about what we did in the crypto economy report. First, I want to define the term. So who are crypto natives? What do we consider the crypto native economy to be? And then finally, we'll look into some of the numbers. It won't be super detailed in terms of the numbers themselves. So you will see a bunch of graphs, but the whole purpose of this talk is basically to get you to see the paper. It's 37 pages of data from the various dApps. So who are crypto natives? Well, we're probably not so bold to come and tell you this is our definition of whoever this new demographic or personality could be. So we started doing instead was we started pulling in other people from the industry for interviews, and we started asking them the question, who is a crypto native? And all of these people were people that we kind of assume are crypto natives that are part of this ecosystem for quite a bit now and have a decent traction in building or educating about a space. So the one thing you can do is basically go to our blog, pond.mirror.xyz, and read all of these interviews. There's also kind of a too long didn't read version, basically compiled definition of who a crypto native is that we got from GPT, basically pouring the interviews into it, which you can find on our Twitter. But I will just tell you my current definition, in my opinion, who I think a crypto native is. So first things first, it needs to be a person who uses crypto assets, who owns crypto assets. But I think the word you use here is very important because in my opinion, a crypto native isn't just someone who invests in cryptocurrencies or in tokens and just have them in their wallet or sitting on an exchange and basically just waiting for appreciation. In my opinion, crypto native is actually someone who lives it, who uses crypto in not necessarily day to day, but you should be a savvy user of a variety of DeFi apps. You should have tried using a DAO or something, or voting in a DAO, and basically try out what's out there. So another important aspect is using DeFi or having DeFi as not a secondary way to like handle your finances, but the primary way of like how do you reason about like your your wealth, or where do you save money? So instead of like looking at, I guess, like traditional means of just like putting $100 into your pension fund, you'll be looking at like the DeFi protocols, figuring out like what actually makes sense for storing your assets, or like putting them to good use. Another important and like quite, I guess, like more frequent in the last 2 years is also a person who actually gets paid in crypto. So there's a whole bunch of people now that can choose to be paid, to have their salaries paid in cryptocurrencies, especially here in Switzerland. It has been so for quite a bit. But there's also an increasing amount of people who work for DAOs, and just like they don't even have a regular contract. They just like are being paid through the different means of like collective treasuries, and having their roles basically just captured in like a smart contract, which pays them if a certain like group of voters agree. Another thing that I actually want to use the opportunity here in Zurich to maybe have some of the attendees to explain to me, another aspect of like who crypto natives are is it's people who don't understand the concept of bank holidays. So it's like beyond me how in 2023 like international bank transfers take like multiple days and don't work over the weekends, or like don't happen at night and so on. So I guess it's just it's just a realization of the technological gap between the current system and what crypto actually enables now today in terms of the ease of use, or like ease of transfers. So all in all, crypto natives, in my opinion, are people who like see and reap the benefits of crypto. They already kind of like realize the 10x benefits for them, not necessarily having to push it on other people, but are basically like here, like not even for, I guess, the low-level tech, but for simply like using the stuff that the entire community has created over the course of the last decade. So what's the Cryptonative Economy report about then? So what we start looking at was, well, okay, well, there is this new demographic that's kind of imminent. It's happening. There's a whole bunch of people that we can associate as crypto natives. And what unites them is that their transactions or their interactions are happening on chain. What's a transparent, like proof of usage. So let's just say, like, what if we forget about all of the other parts? What if we forget about centralized exchanges? What if we forget about all of the, like all of the SaaS services, or like consulting services, whatever it's like around crypto? What if we forget like fiat exists, and we just focus on what we can actually track on chain, and we basically just say, all right, let's take the fees that people are willing to pay into the protocols, to the validators or the miners. Let's even forget about like mining rewards and like newly minted coins. It's definitely an incentivization part, but it's not necessarily. And you could argue, really, open to hear that argument. You could argue that, well, it's like a collective revenue, or like collectively decided fee to be paid to these maintainers of the network. But we were really just interested in like how much are people willing to pay for using the protocols themselves, or some on-chain services. So fees that are directly being withdrawn as part of transactions, part of dApps. And yeah, and we just said like, that's it. Let's start with this as the base segment. Let's forget about all of the rest. In this particular report, which is the first one we made, we don't also look all that much into how much people are earning from these protocols then, like how the DAO salary structure works, but it's definitely something that we want to add in the near future. So basically now we are looking at what happens on chain, what is like verifiable, things that generate value in terms of the demand for those services and willingness to pay fees. Yeah, like in the near future, we'll be also looking at how that actually transitions into then like, again, the purchasing power through like salaries and services, but that's not the part yet. So we looked at, we have like 2 data sources. Obviously, like a whole bunch of these things are on-chain, but there is a convenience in using already existing databases. The primary source was Token Terminal. The secondary source was DeFi Llama. The data was basically captured on 1st of January 2023. And the data we consider in the report is essentially everything that happened in 2022. So there's definitely some like limitations that I should mention. I already mentioned that we are literally only looking at like protocols and dApps. We're not looking at like exchanges. We also don't look at like price movements. It's mentioned in the report just for allowing to, I guess, like visualize. So 2022 was, the bear market or the bear market slope. And all of these fees in the case of a report are denominated in US dollars. What you will see in most of the charts, obviously like the trajectory of the bear market, but what you have to take into account is that those fees are basically counted at the time of the transaction. And at the time of the rate of the particle token the fee was paid in. So in the report itself, what you can basically compare is how these different protocols or dApps have performed compared to the overall like market price movement or like the general like market cap of the entire industry. So even though you'll see a whole bunch of like falling graphs, it doesn't mean that these dApps necessarily actually had lower interest than the previous months. So in terms of infrastructure or L1 blockchains, these 5, Ethereum, BNB Chain, Bitcoin, surprisingly Avalanche, and surprisingly Filecoin, are the 5 blockchains that basically together make up 97% of all of the L1 fees in the space. Or at least like these are trackable and these are available like through the data sources that we used. All in all, on these 5 chains, the user fees that were paid ranged till $5 billion. For comparison, when we did our first like quick dive mid through 2022 for the past like 12 months, so it was like August 2021 until July 2022, this number was roughly $10 billion. So definitely different. And yeah, the interesting part here is that not all of these chains, not all of these protocols have the same trajectory throughout the year. So what we see here in the graph is basically Ethereum as the lead here compared to all of the other blockchains or protocols out there. So obviously, like you can see that in January. Oh, by the way, apologies, I heard it's illegal to use it. I won't point it towards you, but yeah. So in January, things started off like still in the bull market season. The fees like ranging to $1.5 billion. 91% of that is Ethereum, and then obviously you can see the decline throughout the year. But roughly, Ethereum still made up around like 70–80% of all of the protocol fees paid in 2022. So the second was BNB Chain. BNB Chain has definitely the largest traction in terms of user count. It actually has about 30–40% like more users or daily active users than Ethereum, and it basically followed a very similar trajectory. And again, what you have to take into account is that despite the number obviously falling throughout the year, the prices were falling like even faster. So this doesn't necessarily mean that there was actually less usage in the bear market. Another quite interesting thing is that, well, even though Bitcoin isn't the lead in terms of the fees paid, it definitely has a very stable community and actually increasing demand. So compared to Ethereum, definitely wasn't that overhyped, but there is definitely a significant traction in terms of like just keeping users engaged on the network. Another interesting graph, which we probably won't see next year, is Avalanche. It actually made its mark throughout the first 2 quarters, but then kind of correlated to the Luna drop. The interest basically disappeared. I'm sure there's like more reasons for that, but also very likely this won't make it to the next year's report. Another quite interesting point here, Filecoin is number 5. So if you didn't pay attention to Filecoin, it's probably about time to start. Filecoin actually didn't follow the same trajectory at all. There was even like a spike in usage in April and May. So looking at dApps, there's multiple categories of dApps that we took into account. There's definitely importance saying like the number, the 5 billion paid in fees in 2022 in dApps is definitely heavily impacted by the NFT hype. So there's a whole bunch of like NFT marketplaces, NFT infrastructure involved, but then we get into what we would expect. It's like mostly DeFi, mostly DEXs, and some lending and borrowing. So again, I know this is not like easy to read, but the purpose is like for you to go into the report. So again, like similar trajectory to as the protocol fees. We started off. I mean, this is a wrong graph. Sorry. This is just the different dApps, but the actual fee graph is like very similar to this one. So the largest mark is on OpenSea side. It's like more than $1.5 billion paid in fees. This is not like the volume of OpenSea. This is the user paid fees on OpenSea, which already is huge. But that's the kind of the mark of the NFT hype, which definitely is fading or like was fading. Again, next year we'll be very likely looking at a different graph. The second one is Uniswap. Then again, looks rare, back to the NFT hype. And then there's a very interesting project, Convex Finance, which again is one of those that didn't actually like lose anything during the bear market. In terms of where these fees originated, again, majority of these fees originated on Ethereum. It's the blue column, and then a whole bunch of other networks. In this case, there are also L2s considered here. So it's not only focused on L1s, but the whole bunch of the traction is happening on L2s already. So again, this is the graph, like basically showing you the trajectory of the entire bear market. But again, what you have to take into account is falling prices and the fees being denominated in the token exchange rate to US dollars at the time of origination. So when you look at, there's another mistake that I have to warn you about. It's not part of the report, but just in my slides. The table says average monthly users. This is actually average daily active users. So these are the addresses that are somehow like involved with the particle dApp on average, like every day of the month. So in terms of OpenSea, what you can see is like, again, beginning of the year still being in an NFT hype. The fees being close to $400 million. There's definitely like a good number of royalties that were paid as well. What's also important to mention is that despite the NFT hype like disappearing in terms of the fees being paid, it's not like the users actually disappeared. So the user drop wasn't as significant. It's like 1/6 of the users that basically faded. Looks rare. Again, a similar graph in terms of the traction. In terms of the users, it's like fraction of it, but they definitely made, again, a huge mark in the beginning of the year. Convex, here you can see like a very steady, again, I know the graph is falling, but it's like actually a very steady revenue and like interest in the protocol throughout the year. Lido, it's like one of the projects that actually has like increased demand, increased usage. Obviously, like thanks to more people getting into staking, like realizing this is a feasible way for them to participate. Aave, again, like similar graph to what you've seen before, but not as much in terms of the users. So Aave daily usage is actually quite significant, and it's I think it's actually with Uniswap, it's the most used app out there. So yeah, I know this was pretty boring, but it's kind of like meant to be. The purpose of the report is just like to provide you some baseline of like what you can look at and make the conclusions yourself. For me, the conclusions were there's definitely a huge, I guess, like gap between what we see in terms of the fees being paid on protocols and essentially to look at like the top 100 like coins on CoinGecko somewhere, because, well, it only made sense to consider the 5 that actually made up like the 97% at the point. So it just shows there is still a lot of like speculative value in the space. In my opinion, like this bear market is kind of one of the last tests, and in my opinion, the entire like crypto industry has passed it because the users didn't leave. Like what we've seen, I think, in like 2017, 18, and the drop right after. A whole bunch of the people left the ecosystem. It's not happening now, at least in terms of the users that use the stuff that was created. The NFT hype is paused, but it definitely had a huge mark. It's obviously a question what's going to be the next driving factor. It may resume, but I'm again guessing that next year we'll be looking at a very different graph. As it was mentioned, some dApps were growing, so things like Lido, Aave, or even Convex are like still functional, not impacted at all. You know, as someone coming into the space from more of like the Ethereum background, have to admit that things like Bitcoin and Binance Chain actually have decent traction and are actually bringing in users and have their own communities of users. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So the crypto natives didn't leave; they're still here. In my opinion, the demographic will just increase in numbers. So I think like now it's actually the right time to start considering crypto natives or like people in crypto to be like even like a buying force and start building dApps that are not necessarily like focused on like bringing more people into crypto, but already can target especially like the the crypto natives as someone we're building products for. So this was it. This is now our smart contract dev, and this is actually our internal slide that we use on all hands. And yeah, if you're interested in reading the report, you can follow us on Twitter at PondDAO, and you can also just go to cryptonative.pond.xyz to get the full report. So again, thank you for your attention.